in the black community. If you are black, stay back. If you are brown, stick around. If you are yellow, you're mellow. And if you're white, you're right. And the appreciation of an individual, even within the black group itself, was very often based on the relative absence of skin pigmentation. And even within families, children thought that they were ugly if they were darker. And families, parents have said that to children. Even now, people want to know when a baby is just born in the hospital, some of the first questions that are asked by the black parents about the child or the black family members, is it light skin and does it have straight hair? To know how much value we're going to put on this new baby. Because within the framework of the culture in which we live, the closer you are to white, the more you're considered beautiful.
We need to talk about colorism. Steve Biko once said, Black theology must preach that it is a sin to allow oneself to be oppressed. According to a Taylor and Francis online article titled From Black Consciousness to Black Lives Matter, Confronting the Colonial Legacy of Colorism in South Africa, colonial rule and racial segregation established a problematic relationship between skin color and access to socio-economic opportunities, and this not only encouraged a yearning for white skin or light skin among many black, colored, and Indian South Africans, it also led to the emergence of a local, highly profitable skin lightening industry. Internalized racism, along with language that marks masculinity and femininity as traits that relate to dark skin and light skin respectively, they breathe life into the growing and troubling phenomenon that is colorism. Beauty and attractiveness are only seen through a white lens. It is for this reason that proximity to whiteness by way of your physical appearance is given value in communities where otherness is considered desirable and therefore coveted. Black and non-human have been used interchangeably countless times in the past, and unfortunately the remnants of that past are still evident in how we still choose to rely on stereotypes to define and fit into our own identities. Now, you all know I am an atheist, so I of course have to highlight the use of religion in the suppression of African identity and the championing of white excellence and white dominance. The idea is that the only thing black people are good for is bone-breaking labor. That is a stereotype that is still used to justify the dehumanization of darker people. Colorism is a very taboo topic in black and brown communities. Tensions rise the second you utter the word. It's seen and reacted to as an attack almost. Any attempts to address it are seen as a call for division. All this light, brown, and dark skin talk is just creating more boxes. We are all one. We all look the same to our oppressors. Not true, but okay. So why is that? The gist of it is, the lighter you are, the more likely you are to be favored socially, economically, and politically. It's a taboo topic, yes, but it's still been widely covered in online spaces. But because it is the internet, because it is a systematic issue, there are a ton of people who strongly disagree. A large number of these individuals believe those who are lighter complected actually have it worse, not to be confused with those who argue they are simply treated the same. They believe colorism is all made up and is just a way to excuse the mistreatment of lighter complected people.
The whole first season, every time Tisha would walk out, all you hear was, they would not laugh at her jokes. Wow. They treated her horribly.
But also, what she was experiencing is misogyny. It's not reverse colorism. Like, reverse colorism isn't real. And also what I think is interesting is, like, I feel like I've seen clips of like Tashina Arnold really defending Tisha Campbell with her experiences. I have not seen a clip of Tisha Campbell talking about the colorism that Tashina Arnold went through.
Today I want to go through and attempt to debunk the most common points made in favor of reverse colorism, to debunk the many points made in an attempt to validate reverse colorism. Now, to be clear, a lot of people get this wrong, but this needs to be said. Colorism is not just about desirability. Unfortunately, a lot of people on the internet do not seem to understand what colorism is. In fact, there are many people who argue that lighter men, for example, can experience colorism, and this is false. People only understand colorism when it comes to desirability.
And when we had these conversations about colorism, can we please stop linking everything back to desirability from the opposite gender? I just seen this woman, dark-skinned woman, who clearly had a white husband, already throwing me off. Clearly had a white husband, and they had a child. They had a black boy, right? And the husband says he looks darker. I thought he would have, a little bit of a mixed shade, a mixed color. No shade to him, but the mom, a dark-skinned woman, tells him, oh, he won't have any issues because he's a boy. Maybe if he was a girl, then he may have some issues, but everybody loves dark-skinned boys. I still work in an industry where I have to get people to trust me with their finances. And every day I get called a dirty African scammer. Look through my girl comment section. I'm not lying, bruh. This is not a made up thing. This is why I just be pissed off every time people talk about this shit. So again, I'm gonna end every video about this subject with this. To the girl who said, how you gonna talk about experiences of colorism as a man? Shut the fuck up and fuck you.
Because 99.9% of the conversations we have about colorism center desirability. Is this person attracted more to darker or lighter women? What is their reason? Blah, blah, blah. But here is the most sinister side of colorism. 1, colorism is why darker complected people get higher prison sentences. Yes, I can kill someone, you can kill someone, but if you're darker than me, you'll be more likely to get a higher prison sentence. We could both have the same priors. You could have no priors, I could have some, but you are still more likely to get more time because darker people are perceived to be more aggressive. They are thought of to be more capable of committing crime. Because of colorism, darker complected people are less likely to get promoted at work. In fact, they are less likely to get a job.
I had to do 10 interviews in order to get this job. And this is me working in corporate America after having not only a bachelor's degree, an Ivy League degree as well, and a master's in business. And then I still had 10 interviews while she said she had 3. Not only that, I then realized when she told me her pay and my pay, there was a gap. And this is not just my experience, and this is not for a lack of negotiating because I did. It's the experience of tons of darker skinned black women. I feel like for me and a lot of people, we don't get the opportunity to be who we are freely. And that's the problem. It goes beyond dating. It goes beyond beauty standards. It's about the money as well. And it's about how we're perceived. And I think when I hear this comment, it kind of feels like I hear you because I kind of feel the same. There needs to be a lot of more situations where there's dark female cast members all around. It's not to deter what any of you are doing or myself, because we all, again, deserve to be here.
Because of colorism, darker-skinned black women are less likely to have access to healthcare, and when they do, they are more likely to die during childbirth because people think that they have more tolerance for pain. Because of colorism, darker-complected children are less likely to get adopted. Colorism affects darker-skinned people in a plethora of ways. The idea that lighter men experience colorism is so wrong. I don't even understand why anyone would think that. I think it's because there are lots of women who say that they prefer darker men because they perceive darker men to be more masculine. But a lot of people do not think about how much that hurts darker men. A lot of lighter men who think this way do not believe in the existence of colorism at all.
You get treated different as a dark-skinned black boy, and it's not pleasant because I lived it. And you are not anyone to tell me that I didn't just because you're a dark-skinned woman. This goes back to me again talking about how I made a video about my experience growing up as a black boy, and everybody was saying, well, how would he know? Because he's a man. Y'all have to stop linking everything back to desirability, even though I didn't grow up desirable by the opposite gender at all. They was always talking shit about me, but that's only 10 to 20% of the conversation, because let's talk about how you're perceived as a dark-skinned black boy with more danger. You know what I'm saying? People don't approach you as much. They think you're more violent. They think dark-skinned black women have an attitude. When I was interviewing, I remember from the age of 15 years old, luckily I grew up in the blackest area in the country, but when I interviewed at any place that was a white establishment, I remember I worked at a Italian restaurant. They put me in the back chopping onions. All of the light-skinned pretty boys at the front. But any time that I applied for any job, they did not want the customer-facing, even in the black community, the customer-facing people to be the dark-skinned people. I tell my girl all the time, she say, why you cut your hair every single week? Because if I don't, I feel like they're gonna say I look dirty and I'm look unkempt. Because being dark-skinned, you have to keep up with your appearance 10 times more. I work in sales. I'm front-facing. People have to trust me. People don't trust dark-skinned people. It's deeper than desirability. It's a comfort level that these people have because they think we have more attitudes. They think that we're more dangerous. They think we're more violent. And don't even get me started on police looking at a teenage black boy as a grown man. I used to get thrown up against the wall, you know what I'm saying? Handcuffed, beat up, all types of stuff by police. And sometimes the light-skinned boys didn't look like as much of a danger. This isn't about desirability all your life.
But for now, let me just debunk a lot of the points people make to try to invalidate the experiences of darker women. But I do not want to say experiences because I'm sick and tired of people using their experiences to draw conclusions that they do not want questioned, because to them validating their experiences means going with whatever conclusions they draw because of the experiences that they've had. I do not like that one bit, but anyway, yeah. Colorism is a form of prejudice or discrimination that gives preferential treatment to people with lighter skin tones and disadvantages those with darker skin tones. It often happens within the same racial or ethnic group, though it can also occur between different groups. It is rooted in history, strongly tied to colonialism, slavery, and global power structures that favored European or lighter standards of beauty and of class.
Light skins technically are the beauty standard because they're the closest thing to white. Let me cook. And we live in a white man's world. If you are not white and you are other than white, you are already at the bottom of the totem pole. We, being black, are at the bottom. We're at the bottom, regardless. That's just what it is. Hold on, I just turned the stove on. Let me finish cooking. Because light skins are closer to white, they are kind of more so the beauty standard. If you were dark skinned, you will remember being a kid and your mom or your parents or your grandparents would always complain about your hair being quote unquote nappy. Whole time it was just kinky and it was just, we had just had 4C hair. You know, you probably had your lighter skinned cousin, your lighter skinned sibling who had that quote unquote good hair, and they usually were being a lighter complexion. Growing up in high school, I saw the colorism that was experienced through Black women.
According to Google, this is how colorism shows up. It shows up in beauty standards. Media, movies, and advertisements frequently cast or praise lighter-skinned individuals as the ideal. And it also shows up in social and economic life. Studies show lighter-skinned people may secure better jobs, higher incomes, or more education compared to their darker peers from the same background. There is also interpersonal bias. People may make unfair assumptions about a person's intelligence, character, or value based purely on how light or dark their complexion is. What did we learn? That no, colorism is not just about desirability. It goes deeper than that. The reason why we note desirability is because it affects things like which child you think is more worthy of being adopted, our attraction or lack thereof to people of darker skin. It does not just stop there. We take these reasons that we give for that, because if you're not attracted to darker people because you deem them to be less attractive, to be more aggressive, that spills into how you treat other darker women and children. That is why we assess that. That is why it is an important conversation, but it is minute. It is not the only one. The reason why the points people make about reverse colorism are odd and why they do not make sense to me. One of the points that people make is about bullying. People take bullying and make it an exclusive light-skinned girls experience. In an attempt to invalidate the many experiences of darker women, a lot of lighter women tend to push back by saying, hey, we get bullied too, which is odd because noting that colorism exists does not negate that. There's this need for people to prove that their lives are not perfect, that they receive harsh treatment from those within their communities themselves. But again, no one who asserts that colorism is real asserts that bullying is something that lighter individuals do not experience. Now, this is something people might say, but it does not change the reality that both darker and lighter people experience bullying. But bullying is not colorism. Bullying is merely an aspect of it. Bullying is merely an aspect of it. Now, people will do this by claiming that darker girls are bitter and jealous of lighter women, that they wish they looked like them, that they wish that they were seen as desirable as lighter women were. But here is where this claim falls apart, or here is where it loses weight. One, if the individual is claiming colorism doesn't exist, then what do they believe darker women will be jealous of?
One of the things that happens when you have privilege is that you want to believe that you earned it, right? This is why there's such a barrier between white people understanding white privilege, because they really don't want to, right? That's why they choose to say like, oh, so you're saying I've never struggled? No, I'm saying you never struggled for being white, right? So the same thing comes up with light-skinnedness, because colorism is about perceived or real proximity to whiteness. And I actually don't even know that it matters to say perceived or real, but it's about this proximity to whiteness that is ascribed to light-skinned people. And this is why I always want to talk about colorism over like biracialness or mulatto, because you don't have to be biracial to look biracial. Where that means you look like you've got some white in you, because when black people are talking about biraciality, they're usually talking about black and whiteness, right? Which also invisibilizes other people of mixed race identity. But because we like exalt proximity to whiteness, light-skinned people are not given the skills or taught to interrogate being light-skinned, right? And a lot of us just don't do that. A lot of us have this like typical white type of mentality, this like persecution fantasy where we're like, people are so mean to us. Those mean darkies are so mean to us. Why do you think they're mean to us? This is why like colorism conversations always go two ways. You have dark-skinned people who are like, did you know that colorism is real and exists? And when light-skinned people lead colorism discussions, it's always like, why are dark-skinned girls jealous of us?
Why would darker members within your community, just the darker members of your community, why would they and they alone just start experiencing jealousy based on appearance? Why would that happen? And it goes back to people not understanding that how we end up in life, we are informed. A lot of people do not think we are informed how we act, how we carry ourselves through life. They have this idea that darker complexed people are already more aggressive, so them asserting that they just get jealous and randomly start being aggressive towards others. That does not sound like an odd thing for them to say, because in their minds, thinking of darker people that way is not colorism, it's merely bringing up a fact. No, colorism does not go both ways, but you know what does? Jealousy.
We never hear from the brown or dark-skinned women who light-skinned women constantly try to humble, and they viewed our confidence as a threat. Yesterday, my mom and I were having this conversation, and she made me remember this situation that happened years ago. And I was friends with this girl. She is a biracial light-skinned girl. And one day we were at school, and this guy had came up to us, and it was towards the end of the school year, so the sun was out, the weather was nice. And mind you, y'all, I lay out in the sun. I love sun gazing. I love the sun. I do not mind getting dark, okay? And right now, I'm a little darker than my normal complexion, but that year, I was probably a little bit darker than this. And the guy came up to us in the hallway, and he was like, oh, hey, Shay, hey, enter the girl's name. And he had mentioned, he was like, Shay, I love your brown complexion. I love how brown and glistening your skin looks. Why the fuck did this girl say to him, oh, she's not brown, she's dark? And then he looked at her, looked at me. We kind of just awkwardly looked at each other. And then he was like, oh, well, I love how dark and glistening your skin looks. And the girl who was my quote unquote friend at the time, you could just see the irritation in her face. She was so irritated by that. Keep in mind, me and that girl were friends for a few years, and there had been multiple different times whenever people would compliment me, she would always intervene and have to chime in and say something. And she's not the only friend I've had like that. She was a biracial girl, but I also was once friends with a fully black light-skinned girl, very, very light-skinned. She came from one of those families where her family loved hyping her up for being light-skinned, but I'm not gonna lie, she wasn't that pretty in the face. And whenever we would go out in public, people just were always more drawn to me than her, especially men, and she fucking hated that. Whenever men would come up to us and we were out and they would compliment me, she would also always chime in. I remember one time I had like borrowed a shirt or something from the girl, and we were out one day and this guy came up and complimented my shirt, and she was like, oh, well, that's my shirt. Like, bitch, you're a hater. And also, I remember one summer, that same exact girl, we were talking about like these guys that we were into, and I had mentioned the guy that I was into, and she was like, well, I don't think you'll really be his type. You might be a little too dark for him, so I'll probably have a better chance at bagging him. And I was like, okay, well, let's put it to the test. Let's see who could get him. And guess who got him? Bitch, I did. And I didn't even want him at that point. It was just to prove a point, because bitch, you are not who you think you are. And this happens to a lot of us, but this happened to me so much growing up. It still happens to me to this very day, honestly. Honestly, I think it's because society wants dark-skinned black women specifically to feel like we are the bottom of the barrel. We are not the beauty standard. We're not shit. That's what they want us to feel. So when you are a dark-skinned black woman and you just have so much confidence and you walk around like you're that bitch, a lot of people will try to humble you because your confidence intimidates them, especially when you're friends with the girl who is constantly told that she is the beauty standard. Being dark-skinned and being friends with a biracial or a light-skinned girl who is constantly being hyped up because of her complexion, and she's constantly being told that she's superior solely because of her complexion. When they come across somebody like me or you, another dark-skinned black woman who is very beautiful and very confident, yeah, it threatens them. And honestly, I think with those girls that I used to be friends with, they used to not like me because they were no longer the prize. They were no longer the person getting all the attention. Now people are looking at me and you, and that goes against what they're taught. They're taught that dark skin's not attractive. They're taught that they're pretty because they're light skinned. So being friends with somebody like me, it kind of bursts that bubble, and it's like, hold on, what the fuck? This isn't what my family taught me. This isn't what I was told. And obviously that's not all biracial or light skinned women, but it's a lot of them. And I only gave a couple of examples. If I really went down the list, y'all, I have so many stories, because growing up, I honestly used to be friends with a lot of light skinned girls or biracial girls.
A lot of people do not talk about how lighter women themselves express jealousy when they see a woman who they believe should be deemed less desirable, who they believe should be praised less by way of their darker skin, how they react when they see that person being elevated above them, when they see that person being treated in ways they believe only lighter complected people should be treated, when they're being received in a way they feel they should be received. People do not really talk about that because a lot of people have this illusion that, number one, all lighter girls are pretty, which is not true, or number two, they have this illusion that all darker skinned women are not attractive, which both things are not true.
Let me not be insecure to you, sister. Let me not try to break it down to you. But have you understand I'm a light-skinned woman? So I benefit from colorism. You're a dark-skinned woman, sister. You can never make it to the heights I make it from. Oh, can we clock that one, or is it gonna hurt y'all feelings because it's me saying it? Can we be real for once and let's clock everything? Because I'm a light-skinned woman. I say the same shit you say. You're not gonna make it to the heights I make it, bitch, because you can't fuck with me. You're a dark-skinned woman. I want you to understand that.
A lot of people do not like talking about what it is like being a lighter girl who does not receive the beauty privileges, the beauty privilege that comes with being lighter skinned, when you are average or below average and are around darker women who are themselves average or above average. A lot of people do not address that.
I'm light skinned and I'm better. That's what I said. Every person I've ever dated has been darker than me. That doesn't have to do with anything. I'm beautiful. I'm beautiful. What I said was light skins do it better. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. That's why they're hating on my confidence. Don't you see how mad it makes people in these comments? Don't you see how mad it is for a beautiful queen like me to be so confident in what she says that it's eating y'all up? That's crazy.
It's always a Gargamel face, giraffe neck, hula hoop waistline having asshole that thinks she pretty because she is light skinned, that is colorist. It's never a bad bitch. If anything, those bad light skinned bitches, soon as a dark skinned bitch walk through the door and she bad, they give her 10s immediately, bitch.
And the reason for this is whenever we talk about beauty, here's how discrimination shows up with that. What people do is whenever people have more socioeconomic status, the image that they use to generalize about those people, the stereotypical image that they use is the best one they can think of. The same way when you think about positive or negative stereotypes, whenever people have more socioeconomic status, they are mostly thought of as the more positive stereotypes. Those are the stereotypes that mostly follow them. The same thing with white people. We perceive them as intelligent, inventive, beautiful, and all of those things. And when we compare them to somebody else, we more so lean on their more negative stereotypes because they are being compared to people who have more socioeconomic status. And this shows up in colorism as well. Whenever we think of what a lighter woman is, we think of somebody who is beautiful, somebody who's graceful, and all of those things. When we think of darker women, the stereotypes that we use are the negative ones. You are somebody who's not attractive, you're not desirable, and you are more aggressive. But the reality is, nuance exists. We live in a society, we live in a world where even if people discriminate, even if people have these assertions that the darker you are, the less attractive you are, it does not change the fact that people have eyes. And if they see this much more prettier, this much more graceful dark-skinned girl, they will still see that person, they will still see that person. And while due to colorism, a lot of people may not receive the person that way, some people might. And because of that, a lot of people do not like to talk about the jealousy, the jealous attacks, the violent attacks, the verbal abuse, the mental and emotional torment that darker girls are themselves put through when a lot of lighter girls express jealousy towards them themselves. This is why it makes sense to a lot of you for bullying to be framed as something only lighter girls experience, because you only want to think of the pretty girl who's being overlooked and being mistreated for her looks as the lighter girl solely. You do not want to think about how easier it is to bully darker girls, especially when you are somebody who's lighter, especially when you are somebody people tend to have more empathy for.
I posted a video saying that Lotto leans into colorism and therefore she is a pick-me. A lot of people in my comment section were like, imagine if a mixed race light-skinned woman said this about dark-skinned women, it would cause World War III. I don't have to imagine. There's actually a documented history of colorism on the internet. This is Maya Jama. She's the host of Love Island UK. Team Shadow bitches be like shine bright like a diamond. JT, not a light-skinned woman. I love a pretty dark girl. Not too crispy nah. Not too crispy. This one's great because this is how a lot of y'all was acting in that comment section. All you dark skin hating on light skin bitches, don't act like if God gave you the chance you wouldn't change your skin color. Now why would I do that? This girl was on a roll. Dark skin bitches shaving their head expecting to look like Amber Rose when they look like Michael Jordan. And we're gonna end with the colorist himself, Lil Wayne. Lollipop music video, all of the women are light-skinned and racially ambiguous, reinforcing colorism. I didn't write this, by the way. His music video for every girl, I like a long-haired, thick red bone. Apparently, that has no cultural impact, according to the internet. Beautiful black woman, I bet that bitch look better red. The point of this video is I don't have to imagine people talking shit on brown skin, dark skin, unambiguously black women because it happens literally every day. You turn on a rap song, they will say yellow bone, light-skinned woman in the first 20 seconds. Y'all can stop trying to play victim in my comment section. You're never gonna make me feel bad for you. Controversial, don't give a fuck.
It's the same way a lot of people will say, oh, lighter girls get bullied because people say, oh, you're only pretty because you're light-skinned. But the reason why the idea that people are not just pretty because they're light-skinned needs to be asserted is because, again, growing up, it was always asserted that once somebody is lighter, then they are automatically pretty, that light skin equals to beauty. And a lot of people, while they throw this at lighter girls to bully them, and a lot of people do, by the way, a lot of people do, bullying is wrong. Please stop bullying lighter people by telling them that they are not pretty or you're just light-skinned. That is very rude, very wrong, very crass. It is very hurtful, harmful, and that should not occur. But we also need to be honest about why it is something that needs to be asserted. A lot of you do not want to talk about the fact that a lot of lighter girls genuinely do believe that they are prettier because they are light-skinned. And when the face does not match, when the face card is declining, when the body is not teeing, when the body is just still water, when you are taught growing up that lighter people are supposed to be pretty, and you grow up and you realize, oh, I do not fit that archetype, and you are around darker people who more fit that archetype, you sort of push for them to be perceived as what you were taught they should be perceived as, and it creates this in your mind, this confusion about why you're not being received the way lighter people should be.
I learned in the hard way, if you are a beautiful, multifaceted, dark-skinned woman, you will always be the villain. It doesn't matter how nice you are, it doesn't matter how polite you are. Your mere existence threatens a lot of people's confidence and security in themselves. Because there are a lot of people in this world whose confidence comes from the fact that they aren't us. They'll never ever admit it, but they secretly draw a lot of confidence from the fact that no matter what happens, no matter how they look, no matter how they perform, society will always give them more tens than a darker skinned woman. And that is why Alandry has been such a hot topic recently. That's why these big recent engagements of Normani and Coco Jones have been very big topics. That is why everyone likes to believe this idea that you are not desirable and not worthy, because in the real world it isn't true. I could tell countless stories about this, but I really look back in my past and I regret trying to make people so comfortable being around me. Because around the time I started modeling, I started sensing the discomfort that being a tall, bald, dark-skinned woman who was perceived as beautiful and who was already intelligent brought to me, but I denied it. I was like, no, I'm just making up in my head. Like, I don't know why people are being weird to me, but it's probably not that. And I tried to play the nice girl. And people
played in my face because of that, for lack of a better word. They played in my face. Because I was doing my best to be nice and kind and welcoming, and they were seeing me as a threat. They were doing everything in their power to undermine who I was and what I represented.
I remember that song by Cardi B, I Hate a B Word, who thinks she's pretty because she's lighter skinned. I hated how a lot of lighter women failed to, drag Cardi B by her lace fronts and to speak out and say, how could you do this? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of lighter women only like to push back up against these things when a darker woman says it. Another thing that a lot of people like to say is that, oh, they are made to not feel black enough. A lot of people say that because they're lighter, that they may be racially ambiguous, that they are not fully black. And I again want to point out that lighter people themselves contribute to this. A lot of lighter people themselves like asserting that they look colored or they look other, and all of this stuff, and use that for social currency. Again, they are in a community where otherness is coveted, where otherness is applauded, where you are pedestalized, when you are perceived to have otherness, when you're perceived to be somebody who has otherness. And a lot of you do not like to talk about how a lot of lighter people perpetuate that themselves, how a lot of lighter people will take compliments that say, yo, inga to China, hosh koromina, and all of that stuff. An example of this is how we in South Africa will say a darker person, umntu omnyama ebusweni. We've always used the word black to mean dark in our languages, and a lot of people speak that way even when they translate it to English. There are a lot of lighter people, for example, who will insult a darker person by saying, you look black and I look lighter. That happens a lot more often than a lot of you are willing to admit. But again, when it's a lighter person using this to bully a darker person, none of you are insulted, and none of you jump on the person for questioning your blackness, for invalidating your blackness. And it gives me this impression that the issue is not your blackness being questioned, the issue is colorism being brought up. The issue is not blackness being used to tear down darker women. People start doubting your blackness in order to harm darker individuals. You do not seem to be there. You do not seem to run in with your cape and demand that they stop. You don't seem to throw the same labels, jealous, bitter. You don't seem to throw those words around quite as easily. We need to talk about how men themselves contribute to this, again, when they compliment these lighter women, and how a lot of these lighter women do not see it as a problem when men do it. Only when colorism is being highlighted do these things suddenly become a problem, and I want to know why. Another thing people say is that people do not really listen to lighter people.
Colorism also happens on the other end. When I talk about the internalized racism and how lighter skinned voices, they don't get heard, they don't get pushed out there within the black community, that I get eye rolls, I get, people, there's a reaction to that is very negative and not welcoming. And
I'm not in the business of denying people their lived experiences, like who am I? But I think we can also acknowledge that those things happen. Like lighter skinned people have like certain experiences where they feel invalidated because of their complexion, and we can also
can you acknowledge that colorism affects lighter skinned people?
There's no such thing as reverse colorism, same way there's no such thing as reverse racism, reverse sexism, any reverse ism, that's what I believe.
That's your opinion.
I agree in the sense that the experiences you're talking about that circulate around like all this coded language of like you're not actually black or you're not black enough or like, quantifying.
Which also happens with white people.
I just want to finish speaking.
I'm sorry, I just want to add to your point. Go ahead.
I have experienced versions of that myself, and I do not consider that to be colorism. Colorism is distinctly about a system and resources and visibility and autonomy within those systems.
That lighter people are never given the mic in the community, which is a lie. There has not been a single documentary on colorism that has been made without a follow-up that showcases the experiences and the hardships of lighter people. For example, there was a man in America who made a documentary, and in it he talked about how he faced so much colorism that he cannot fathom having a child who has his complexion, that is why he has not had children. He does not want to risk bringing into this world a child who is as dark as he is, because he does not want that child to go through the same dehumanizing treatment he received from his community. Guess what happened? Lighter women sent him death threats. They sent him death threats. They called him all types of names. They used emotional manipulation. Tears were flying around, and he had to make a second documentary highlighting the struggles of lighter women. They did not care that this man just highlighted that a lot of darker people are afraid of having darker children because they do not want their children to go to experience the same harm that they experienced growing up. No, they did not take that in. They wanted their own documentary.
You're not gonna find a lot of light skins who talk about the deliberate construction of lightness in their families or in our families, because people are disincentivized from thinking about colorism in that way.
In fact, even when Oprah did a documentary about darker girls, she had to follow it up with lighter girls. Why? Because every time black people talk about colorism, they have to turn around and say, oh, and by the way, lighter people also get bullied. Yeah, they do that all the time. It happens all of the time, but that is not good enough, because the issue a lot of lighter people have is darker people finally having a voice to speak out against this. And that is why it translates to I'm not being allowed to speak, when no, it's that they're finally being allowed to speak as well.
Feel like that's what we're fighting. healing from the past. I think that it affects everything that we do. It affects our relationships. It affects our art. But that comes from us. But that's what I'm saying, that we haven't healed from that. We just haven't. Well, Lord, goodness, how long is it going to take?
With pop culture, it's like they have a club.
When we do something about it, when we're proactive in the situations, when we continue to beat down that door and continue to be vocal and aware about these things in every room we step into, every job we have, every friend group we have, every family. That's too much of an inconvenience for you, and you're just the person who wants to throw their hands up and be like, well, I don't care. Go away. It just needs to go away. That's not how that works. We deal with every other ism there is in a way of being progressive, being aware, all these things, racism, any form of bigotry. You think all of it just stopped when we ignored it? It'll grow. It'll fester. If Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and you think if they ignored it, it just would have went away?
This idea that you're not allowed to speak about your struggles. No, you're not allowed to claim bullying is colorism. That is not you not being given the mic and not being given a space to speak. That is you not being allowed to lie. That is you not being allowed to misinform.